What's up, y'all? It's your boy YVNGB, man. We back at it again with another freaking video. And today, we're going to be talking about all the BMT jobs, duties, details. We're going to talk about the whole 9 yards, y'all. We're going to go ahead and get this out the way so y'all can get an understanding and be prepared and know what y'all are signing yourselves up for when y'all get the BMT. So basically, all these details and these jobs, you're pretty much going to get asked to do once you get there. Basically, for me, when I got there, it was kind of late. It was about, like, I want to say 2 in the morning when we got to our dorm. They pretty much was like, hey, you need 2 people to raise your hands. I kind of explained this in one of my other videos. You need 2 people to raise your hands. I raised my hand. I became child runner. About 2 weeks later, I became element leader. And I'm going to explain to y'all what all of these are right now. So basically, we're going to start off with dorm chief. And we also going to start off because basically what I'm about to talk about is the flight leadership. They are not a part of your chain of command. They're not really a part of it, but MCIs are going to practically preach every day. Handle it amongst yourselves. You are all grown adults. Handle it amongst yourselves. Handle it amongst yourselves before you get yourself some motivational tools. So basically, dorm chief is basically the head honcho of the flight. Basically, he is kind of like the supervisor of the flight. He is in charge of everything. So basically, MTI will call the dorm chief in the office. You're going to hear it. It's going to sound like a meme every time they say it. Dorm chief, dorm chief. You're going to hear it every time. Basically, they're going to call the dorm chief in, tell them what needs to be done for the day. And basically, dorm chief job is to delegate it to everybody in the flight. Everything doesn't get done how they want it to be done, dorm chief gets chewed out about it. And then he also can chew out the element leaders because they're not helping him out. Basically, dorm chief is the head honcho and the supervisor of the flight. Now, he's not supposed to go around just barking orders to you. Obviously, that is the MTI's job. So don't get that confused. Nobody is in charge of basically just kind of yelling at everybody and telling everybody what to do when the MTI is not around. They are just basically there to kind of guide us on the right path and let us know the next steps, next direction of where we're supposed to go or what we're supposed to do. So with that being said, after the dorm chief on the leadership roles, you have element leaders. There should be 4 element leaders. You're going to have 2 bays and there's going to be 2 rows of beds in those bays. You're going to have bay A, bay B. You're going to have 2 rows on each side of each bay. So basically, there should be 1 element leader in each one. Now, it may not end up like that in BMT because that didn't happen for us. We had a couple times where there were 2 element leaders in one row of beds, but it doesn't really matter as long as there are 4 element leaders. Basically, the element leaders are basically the sub supervisors. So basically, they are kind of like, your go-to guys when it comes to getting help. If they can't help, if the element leaders can't help, they may go to the dorm chief and be like, hey, we can't do this. You know any way how to fix this? Boom. If the dorm chief can't do it, then he lets the MCI know, and boom, now you got the situation handled because the MCI is more, knowing of what's going on and what to do about that situation. So element leaders are basically like sub-supervisors. They pretty much, watch everything and make sure everything's good. Their job when it comes to details, which you will learn about when you get there, is pretty much like cleaning and making sure everybody's wall lockers are good to go and squared away. You're gonna hear squared away a lot when you get to BMT. So basically their job is to walk around when it comes to details, to walk around, check everybody's wall locker and make sure everything's hung up correctly, make sure everybody's clothes are folded correctly, rolled correctly, make sure there's no lint all over the place, make sure shoes are good, make sure beds are tucked, make sure everything is squared away and inspection ready. Inspection order. That's what an element leader does. They are in charge of making sure that each of their elements, their rows of beds, are lined up, squared away, everything's good. No demerits should be able to be spotted if an element leader did their job properly. Obviously, nobody's perfect, so you will see, some demerits or some discrepancies that get called out, like lint or uneven beds or whatever the case may be. Next, I wouldn't even say this is really a leadership role. I would say it is, but then again, I wouldn't. But we're going to talk about Guidancebearer. Guidancebearer is the guy that carries that staff with the flag waving from the top. So basically, they are in charge of guiding the flight. Thus the word Guidancebearer. And pretty much the staff that they have, the flag that is attached to that staff, that entire staff is called a guidon. That's the reason why Guidancebearer. They are in charge of holding that staff, holding that flag. And pretty much you will hear it every time. They probably have the hardest job because of the fact that they have to march just like us, but also learn extra steps on top of that. If you've never done Guidancebearer before, it's going to be very difficult to have your hand-eye coordination and doing all of this all at the same exact time. They have to do certain things at the exact moment in order to stay in line with us, with everybody else who is marching. They do have a difficult job, and it's a little harder to learn if you've never done any Guidancebearer stuff. Luckily for my flight, we had somebody who's done Guidancebearer before. They came prepared. At PT, they are in charge of guiding us to where we need to go on the PT pad. You will learn about the PT pad when you get to VMT. It's pretty much, like I said, PT pad. You will learn about it at 5:45 every day. So they are in charge of guiding us to where we need to go on the PT pad, because everybody has a set spot on where they're supposed to line up and where they're supposed to be at. So yeah, that's Guidancebearer. These next couple ones I'm going to list off, they're not necessarily in a leadership role. They're not leadership. They're not any of that. They're pretty much just miscellaneous, pretty much. So first one we're going to talk about is chow runner. Obviously, I have experience being chow runner. Chow runner is not as bad as everybody's going to make it seem. Yes, it's going to be bad when you first start because you don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You don't know facial movements when you get there. Obviously, your recruiter taught you, but when you get there, you don't know any facial movements because you were never taught by your MTI when you get there. So you don't know any of that. So when you get there, it's a little shock and awe factor. But you don't know anything. You don't know what to do. You're in charge of getting your flight into the dining facility to get food. They will send you in and basically say, chow runners go. And you're going to repeat after your MTI yells it. You're going to say, chow runners go. You're going to send them off. And they're going to walk into the DFAC or dining facility. And they're going to go talk to the MTIs that are at this area called the snake pit, which is basically, it's the snake pit. It's basically an area where you go talk to the MTI, let them know, hey, my dorm is ready to eat. And you have to say a script that is specifically only for you to say, and for you to say specifically your dorm, your room, everything. You have to say it specifically exactly like how it is on that paper. And you have to say it to them correctly or they're going to have you start over. And if you start messing up numerous times, they're going to start grilling you. You're in front of a bunch of MTIs standing in all one area where they're just kind of just either chilling or they're eating. So that's a bunch of eyes on you at one time. So it's going to be a nervous wreck when you first start being a chow runner. But once you actually learn the ropes and learn what to say, it's not that bad. It actually makes you a lot more comfortable and actually being able to talk to an MTI, being able to actually, speak your mind or say something or speak up or something like that. It makes you more comfortable with yourself, makes you more ready to go, makes you kind of be able to hold your shoulders high. Yeah, that's a chow runner. EC monitor is basically, if you've seen the memes on Instagram where there's a guy standing over you in the middle of the night and you get woken up with a flashlight in your eye, it's kind of like a military meme. That's pretty much EC shift. It's called other things, Firewatch or something like that for the Army or something like that. You have that in the Air Force. It's called EC shift. And the person that is in control of that and basically writes the shifts down and writes the shifts up and sets the schedule, he's called EC monitor. So basically, they are in charge of setting up the shifts. Basically, they are in charge of also making sure that paper is filled out correctly. So when the EC does his checks and does all that and verifies everything, they're supposed to document it, that they did that check. If it was not documented correctly, it all falls down on the EC monitor. It does fall down on the person who was doing that EC shift, but it all falls down on the EC monitor, just like how everything falls back on the dorm chief. EC monitor sets it up. There are times where you will have a bad EC monitor. When I say that, I mean a bad EC monitor. I mean a EC monitor who basically sets up a shift and kind of has like a little favoritism, or he kind of does more shifts for somebody else than they do for everybody else. Or he might have you do nights every other time, and you don't, people that are friends with him don't really work nights at all. They just work day shift when nobody's really in the room or something like that. You do have bad EC monitors like that. Hopefully you don't get one when you go to BMT. Yeah, I've had that time where we had a bad EC monitor. Well, I wouldn't even say it was a bad EC monitor. It just kind of seemed like that. I got a bunch of night shifts, and I had a bunch of night shifts when the MTIs would come in for that next morning. So I would be working from like 2 to 4, and they get in. You can hear them come through the door. So you know they're there, and you're just waiting for them to start banging on that door. It's the worst time to get EC shift. Roll guards. So pretty much roll guards. All right, y'all. We back at it. I ran out of space on my doggone phone. Had to delete some stuff. So we was talking about, I want to say weapons monitor. So weapons monitor, basically they're in charge of weapons. They're in charge of lists that they're supposed to sign off. The list that you sign off, basically saying that you got a piece of paper. I mean, not a piece of paper, got your weapon, and you got your weapon stowed away, and it's basically you signed it off saying that you received your weapon and you will take care of it. So they are pretty much in charge of keeping that, and they are also in charge of weapon accountability when CQ, basically people downstairs, the MTIs downstairs, they have their own little office area, CQ area. So basically they will call up, make sure you have full accountability and weapons accountability. That's simple. So now we about to get into the details or cleaning that jobs that you basically can get. So it's a whole list of these. So I'm going to go by these one by one really quickly. It's a whole lot of them. So you got latrine crew. Basically, it's a group of about 5 or 6 people that are in charge of cleaning the bathroom, is what you would call it. But when you get to BMT, it is now called a latrine. They're in charge of cleaning that. They're in charge of making sure that everything is good in there. So you're going to have to sweep, mop, clean the toilets, make sure all the toilet seats are up, all that, all that craziness. You got to clean the showers. I know that's going to be the grossest part of it. Yeah, you got to clean the showers. So it gets rough. Next, stairwell crew. So stairwell crew, basically, in the name, they clean the stairwell right next to your dorms. You're gonna clean that stairwell every day. You just dust it, make sure it's good, make sure it's clean, no leaves, no dust. Next, day room. Day room crew. Pretty much you're in charge of the day room. So like when you get there, you're gonna always sit in the day room when it comes to like having a meeting. So you're gonna clean the day room, you're gonna dust the day room, you're gonna mop the day room, you're gonna pretty much dust off everything that's in there. There's gonna be like a little training locker that's in there, TV that's gonna possibly be in there, I don't know. And that's pretty much it. Day room isn't that hard. You just kind of move the furniture and make sure the furniture's not touching the wall or anything like that. And that's pretty much it. Utility crew. So pretty much I would say laundry crew and utility crew are pretty much the same exact thing. Or at least that's what it was for us. We just used the laundry crew basically as a utility crew because basically we made a rule that nobody goes in the laundry room or the utility room without laundry crew or utility crew knowing that you went in there. Or they'll just pass it off to you so that way they know who got it, who has anything, who has everything, so that way they have accountability of all the tools that have come out of there. So pretty much your go-to people when it comes to details and all that stuff. Hallway crew, clean the hallway, make sure there's no dust or anything like that. You're gonna sweep, mop, straightforward. Fire monitor. Now this one's a little different. This one is more so about all the safety precautions we have. So make sure every fire exit sign actually works and works properly. So if it was, the power was to cut out, the light actually comes on in the fire exit sign. And then you're also going to make sure the fire exit doors are good. You're going to make sure all that is good. And we will pretty much let the dorm chief know, like, hey, everything's good. I checked everything. If you want to go back over it and check it. Yeah, it's not hard. I used to be, the element leader, and I would just kind of do fire monitor stuff. So I would just make sure, because we didn't really have a fire monitor. We just had everybody kind of just running around doing everything just to make sure everybody was good. Bed aligners. So bed aligners, they're in charge of alignments of your beds. Your beds have to be aligned 24/7. They will make sure of that. And you're probably going to end up moving your beds every day because of the fact that you're moving so quick, you're leaning on your beds. You're really not supposed to lean in BMT, but the shoe aligners, they're in charge of lining up shoes. You pretty much are gonna have a display that you have to follow by. Everything has to be lined up. Pretty much everything, all your shoes have to be displayed a specific way during the time of day. You have to make sure all that is lined up. Make sure every shoe is set up the correct way or what time of display is supposed to be on. And that's pretty much their job, to make sure everything is lined up correctly when it comes to shoes. And then also they're in charge of making sure that you have your signature or your initials and your thing that you have to pretty much put on everything that you have at BMT. So that way, if somebody ends up having your stuff or you end up missing a shoe or something like that, you can just look for that inside your shoe, and that'll pretty much designate, hey, that's mine, and that is who it, that's his, and that's yours, and that's his, and that's mine. That way everybody knows whose is who. Bed tightener. Bed tighteners, it's kind of straightforward. You have to do hospital corners for your beds when you're in BMT. If you don't know what that is, I'm probably gonna maybe do a video for it. I still to this day do hospital corners sometimes. I don't really hospital corner all my sheets. I just kind of do the top sheet. So they're in charge of tightening up beds. Beds have to look crisp. Can't have any wrinkles or anything like that. Everything has to look tight, good, look smooth, everything. And they're also in charge of making sure that you have a 341. 341 is kind of like a discrepancy or a accomplishment slip, but you also have to have at least 3 or 4 of those on you at all times. So you got to make like an extra one just to put on your bed. You have to make sure that 341 slip is filled out properly, and you also have to make sure it's lined up correctly. It has to be directly in the middle of the bed, so has to make sure that's good. Chapel guide, they are pretty much in charge of, chapel services. So if you want to go to church when you're at BMT, if you want to do that, they are in charge of pretty much, walking you to church services. For the most part, sometimes they do have them in the dorm. So like you don't even have to walk anywhere. They'll just put it in the day room on the TV and you can just watch the church services. So yeah, that's pretty much chapel guide. That's pretty much it. I don't know exactly what they do. For the most part, that's pretty much the gist of chapel guide. So now we're going to get into the extra duties. So it's not a lot, but there are times where your flight will get picked to do extra duties. One of the extra duties will be detail flight. So pretty much you'll be in charge of cleaning the entire squadron atrium is what it's called. It's kind of like you're just going to clean out the outside of the squadron. So once you go outside of those stairwells, there's going to be an area called the atrium, and pretty much you are going to just sweep that entire area. And then you also have to clean CQ hallway, CQ area. You have to sweep and mop that area. You're going to also clean the bathrooms that are there. Make sure all the hand sanitizers are refilled, and you're going to also make sure the soap is refilled. Pretty easy. You get a couple hours to do that. You bring down all the materials you need from your utility closet back at the door. It's pretty easy. It's not hard. It's not that bad, to be honest. Time flies. You get to, get fresh air, be out and about. KP duty. Now, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I avoided KP duty at all times. I'm the GOAT. Literally, I had somebody call over the radio, CQ, and they called over saying, hey, we need our flight to take over for KP duty because another flight is a little too busy to do it. And literally, I was walking out of the latrine at that time. So I walked out and I heard it, and they looked dead at me. The EC shifts people were looking dead at me when I did it, when I came out of the latrine, and they literally didn't say anything to me. I just walked back to my bed and went back to sleep. They didn't say anything to me, and they walked up to somebody, I think, right next to me and asked them, like, hey, I need you to do a KP shift. So go ahead, get up. And I looked, and I was just like, thank you. I was so happy I avoided KP duty the entire time I was there. I did not want to do KP duty. But KP duty is basically you help out the kitchen. You help them basically take the trash out. You help them clean the trays of all the trainees, that are eating. And you basically just kind of help around the kitchen, helps them make sure everything's running smoothly and flowing. It's pretty much KP duty. It's not hard. It's not that bad. But I just wanted to avoid doing it just because I didn't want to do KP duty. I hated it. I could just see the look on their face. They didn't like it. But some people said it wasn't that bad. They got to get, the little snacks that you can bring back to the dorm. They got their protein bars is what I mean. But so that's pretty much all the jobs, all the details, everything that you get pretty much picked to do when you get there. The extra duties you kind of find out once you get accustomed. They'll kind of your MTI will let you know what needs to be done. But that's pretty much all the jobs. That's pretty much it. But yeah, man, if you guys have any questions about anything Air Force or anything BMT, anything tech school, I've done it. I've been there. Comment it. Let me know. I've been in for almost about a year in the Air Force. Trust me, I have some sort of knowledge of what you may need to know. And yeah, without further ado, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, share this video to anybody who's going to BMT. And yeah, man, you already know what's coming up next. Peace.